Al-Andalus. Ever heard of this name? Maybe not. Heard of Spain? Yeah, that exactly what Al-Andalus was. Spain's former name. Let us dive a little into its history and the reasons how Al-Andalus became Spain. Al-Andalus was the Muslim-ruled area of the Iberian Peninsula, Hispania, today known as Spain and Portugal. The state was ruled by Muslims during the period between 711 and 1492. These boundaries changed constantly as the Christian Reconquista progressed, eventually shrinking to the south and finally to the Emirate of Granada. Several historical sources state that the Islamic Caliphate had not actually targeted the Visigothic kingdom for conquest, but political divisions within it created an opportunity which was successfully exploited by an army which was led by the Muslim general Tariq ibn Ziyad. The Umayyad conquest of Hispania, also known as the Umayyad conquest of the Visigothic kingdom, was the initial expansion of the Umayyad Caliphate over Hispania in the Iberian Peninsula from 711 to 718. The conquest resulted in the decline of the Visigothic kingdom and the establishment of the Umayyad Wilaya, state/province of Al-Andalus. The Muslims successively constituted a province of the Umayyad Caliphate. Umayyad Caliphate was second of the four major caliphates established after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Under the Caliphate of Cordoba, Al-Andalus was a center of learning, and the city of Cordoba was the second largest in Europe, became one of the leading cultural and economic centers throughout the Mediterranean area, Europe, and the Islamic world. Achievements that have advanced Islamic and Western science came from Al-Andalus, including major advances of trigonometry, jabr, astronomy, arzachel, surgery, Abul Qasis al-Zahrawi, pharmacology, Avenzoar, and agronomy. Al-Andalus became a major educational center for Europe and the lands around the Mediterranean Sea as well, as a conduit for cultural and scientific exchange between the Islamic and Christian worlds. The Caliphate of Cordoba also had extensive trade with other parts of the Mediterranean, including Christian parts. Trade goods included luxury items, silk, ceramics, gold, essential foodstuffs, grain, olive oil, wine, and containers, such as ceramics for storing perishables. Christians and Jews were subjected to a special tax called jizya to the state, which in return provided internal autonomy in practicing the religion and offered the same level of protections by the Muslim rulers. The jizya was not only a tax, but also a symbolic expression of subordination. The Jewish population worked mainly as tax collectors in trade, or as doctors or ambassadors. In the late 15th century, there were about 50,000 Jews in Granada and roughly 100,000 in the whole of Islamic Iberia. Al-Andalus flourished under Muslim era. Still, the Christian kingdom stayed in conflict with them. After the fall of the Umayyad Caliphate, Al-Andalus was fragmented into minor states and principalities. Attacks from the Christians intensified, led by the Castilians under Alfonso VI. In the next century and a half, Al-Andalus became a province of the Berber Muslim empires of the Almoravids and Almohads, both based in Marrakesh, city in Morocco. Ultimately, the Christian kingdoms in the north of the Iberian Peninsula overpowered the Muslim states to the south. In 1085, Alfonso VI captured Toledo, starting a gradual decline of Muslim power. With the fall of Cordoba in 1236, most of the south quickly fell under Christian rule, and the Emirate of Granada became a tributary state of the Kingdom of Castile 2 years later. In 1249, the Portuguese Reconquista culminated with the conquest of the Algarve by Alfonso III, leaving Granada as the last Muslim state on the Iberian Peninsula. Finally, on January 2nd, 1492, Emir Muhammad XII surrendered to the Emirate of Granada to Queen Isabella I of Castile, completing the Christian Reconquista of Peninsula. This is how Al-Andalus finally changed to countries today known as Spain and Portugal. The majority of Muslims were forced to accept conversion, becoming as new Christians. Many of the new Christians, also called Moriscos, though outwardly Catholic, continued to adhere to their old beliefs in private as crypto-Muslims. The decline in revenue and loss of technical skills from the expulsion of Muslims from Aragon precipitated the downfall of Aragon and the prominence of Castile. Further, The loss of revenue and skills from Valencia led to a shift of Catalan power from Valencia to regions around Barcelona, which had far fewer Muslims and were thus less affected. The last mass prosecution against Moriscos for crypto-Islamic practices occurred in Granada in 1727, with most of those convicted receiving relatively light sentences. By this stage, the indigenous Islam is considered to have been effectively extinguished from Spain. Later, in Second Treaty with Morocco in 1799, the King of Spain formally guaranteed the right of Moroccans in Spain to practice their religion in exchange for Spanish Catholics being granted the same rights in Morocco. So a strong reign under Umayyad Caliphate came to an end, and now what we can find is the remains in monuments and tourist places. When one visits Spain, the great Alhambra Palace can be seen as a memento of the Umayyad dynasty with beautiful carved Arabic verses written on its walls. That's it for today. Subscribe for more content.